The Bayon, which was built in the center of Angkor Thom around 1200 AD, is the second most popular structure in Angkor after Angkor Wat. It is the temple with the countless enigmatic stone faces that Angkor is known for. Because it is unclear who or what those giant Buddhas represent, the smiling faces of Angkor Thom have become an emblem of Angkor's secrets. The original total number of face towers is still being debated. However, the Bayon was once home to about 50 structures and 200 enormous faces. Now there are 37 standing towers, the majority of which have 4 Buddha faces aligned toward the cardinal points. The majority of them are raised on the cruciform terrace surrounding the central tower, which is unusually circular for Angkor. The center tower stands 43 meters above the ground. Aside from the face towers, there is another intriguing attraction at the Bayon. The large-scale carvings on the gallery walls, which are both overwhelming and lovely due to their plethora of delectable details. The Bayon was the state temple of King Jayawarman VII, 1181 to 1218, who established Buddhism as the new official worship. But this was Mahayana Buddhism, contrary to popular belief. Jayawarman VII's reforms did not lead to Cambodia becoming a Theravada Buddhist country. In many ways, the Bayon represents the apex of the king's great building enterprise. Jayawarman VII was the most prolific temple founder in Cambodian history. However, the Bayon was built in such a rush that stone was piled on stone without the perfection that Angkor Wat is known for. Jayawarman VII was born in 1125, during the reign of Angkor Wat's creator, Suryavarman II. Jayawarman was the son of the later Angkor king, Dharanindravarman II. Following Suryavarman's death, about 1150, factions fought for supremacy in the Khmer Empire. The foreign Cham were also involved, and in 1171, Cham invaders assaulted Angkor. In 1177 or 1178, they conquered the Khmer capital, occupying it and installing Cham kings for several years. In 1181, Jayawarman VII, who was at the moment a kind of warlord gathering soldiers, managed to repel them and establish his own rule. He quickly initiated a big building drive. His first big initiatives included Banteay Khade, Ta Prohm, and Preah Khan. Finally, near the end of the century, he established the new capital of Angkor Thom. 4 straight avenues begin at 4 of Angkor Thom's 5 city gates at the cardinal points and lead to the Bayon in the city's center. It was the last state temple to be built in Angkor and the only Buddhist state temple during the Angkorian reign. The layout of the Bayon was labyrinthic and perplexing from the start. However, the misconception stems from many changes that occurred over the last 3 centuries of the medieval Khmer Empire. Later additions include the East Terrace, library buildings, square corner buildings of the inner gallery, and elements of the upper terrace. The temple was temporarily Hindu. The original massive central statue, Buddha meditating while protected by serpent ruler Muchalinda, was destroyed under Jayawarman VIII's iconoclasm in the latter half of the 13th century. The statue was recently rebuilt and is now located in Vihir Prampal Loving, the Buddha terrace behind the southern Kliang in Angkor Thom. The temple has no external walls and can be regarded to be replaced by Angkor Thom's city walls. As Angkor Wat was a temple that also served as a city, Angkor Thom might be referred to as the Bayon city. The temple plus city configuration Angkor Thom is the world's second largest historical temple compound, measuring 9 square kilometers. Only Preah Khan of Kampong Svay, Preah Vihir province, is larger. Within the Bayon temple, there are 2 galleried enclosures, the third and second enclosures, and an upper terrace, the first enclosure. The outer gallery of the Bayon temple, third enclosure, is 156 meters by 141 meters. Originally, it was highlighted by a full vault and a preceding half vault. Only the inner wall and pillars survived. This wall in the outer gallery contains a sequence of bas-reliefs showing historical events, marching and battling forces, and images from daily life. The bas-reliefs are not accompanied by epigraphic explanations, hence it is unclear whether historical events are depicted. The most intrinsic carvings are found in the southern and eastern galleries, while the northern and western reliefs are incomplete. Some sculptures are detailed enough to identify fish species or musical instruments used in Southeast Asia today. The most famous site is located in the eastern half of the southern gallery. It portrays a maritime battle, most likely the Cham invasion of Angkor in 1177-78, when they came on boats on the Great Lake, Tonle Sap, and attacked the city while rowing upstream. Cham warriors can be easily identified since they are typically depicted wearing lotus hats in Bayon reliefs. Dead Khmer warriors are represented in the water. However, in several situations, the Khmer had the upper hand in warfare. Finally, the Khmer monarch and his subjects enjoy a victory feast. In the lower register of that naval war scenario, with numerous massive boats, are the Bayon's most famous carvings representing a kaleidoscope of daily life activities, some of which are still popular in rural Cambodia today. They are of modest size. Market scenes include products being weighed, buying and selling, open-air cooking, men drinking brandy, a cockfight, and spectators placing bets. There are also various palace scenes featuring princesses and servants, a woman giving birth to a kid, people conversing and playing board games, wrestlers, hunters, and a wild boar fight. The western half of the southern gallery, with inferior sculptural quality, depicts a military march with Khmer and Cham soldiers. The southeast corner pavilion depicts an unfinished temple with towers, asparas, and a lingam. The southern section of the eastern gallery displays the marching Khmer army, which includes some Chinese soldiers. King Jayawarman VII is depicted on a horse. The generals are mounted atop elephants. They are surrounded by soldiers, supply wagons, musicians, and even ladies with children. The procession of sacred fire is led by bearded Brahmins. Some household scenes on the left-hand side, beside the southern door of this wall, represent Angkorian residences, with some of the occupants appearing to be Chinese merchants. Gurus are depicted teaching small groups of students. The northern half of the eastern gallery depicts a land battle in which Chinese soldiers with distinctive clothing support the Khmer army's assault against the Cham. The unfinished western half of the northern gallery contains a spectacular scene of royal court entertainment, with jugglers and acrobats. In the western gallery, unfinished reliefs depict an army advancing through the forest, as well as disagreements and fighting between various Khmer clans. One notable feature is a massive fish eating a little deer. The northern half of the eastern gallery depicts a land battle in which Chinese soldiers dressed in unusual clothes assist the Khmer army in their assault on the Cham. The unfinished western half of the northern gallery depicts a stunning scene of royal court entertainment, complete with jugglers and acrobats. Unfinished reliefs in the western gallery show an army advancing through the forest, as well as disagreements and warfare among numerous Khmer clans. One noticeable element is a large fish swallowing a small deer. The eastern wing depicts the legend of a little child saved from drowning. Shiva is one of the hermits in the eastern gallery. Its northern wing depicts two Khmer legends: the escape of a girl imprisoned in a rock and a king suffering from leprosy caused by a snake bite. Shiva and Uma on Nandi are depicted on the east wing of the northern gallery, as is Vishnu and Lakshmi. Its west wing features the Trimurti and Kama, the god of love, who was hit by Shiva's arrow. The north wing of the western gallery depicts a familiar subject, the churning of the milk ocean. To the south of the western Gopura, there is a detailed picture of temple construction. The upper terrace, first enclosure, houses the Bayon's distinctive face towers. The number of towers altered over time. Perhaps there were 48 or even 54. As previously stated, 37 face towers remain. It is also debatable who the faces represent. They most likely show Avalokiteshvara, the most revered compassionate bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism. As Lokeshvara Samantamukha, the all-encompassing Lord of the world who faces all directions. An additional theory is that the gigantic faces are a blend of Buddha and King Jayavarman VII. The similarities between the enormous faces on the Bayon's towers and other king monuments have prompted some historians to conclude that the face carvings reflect Jayavarman VII himself. The two hypotheses are not necessarily conflicting. According to Angkor scholar George Coedes, Jayavarman followed in the footsteps of Khmer monarchs known as Devarajas, who were revered as gods. While most of his predecessors identified with Shiva or, in the instance of Suryavarman II, Vishnu, the Buddhist Jayavarman VII could have identified with a Buddha or Bodhisattva. The greatest time to see the Bodhisattva faces is around noon, when the bright sunlight highlights the features without throwing too many shadows. The enclosure wall carvings should be observed around 11 a.m., when the shadows highlight the contours in 3 dimensions, especially on the eastern wall, which is better than frontal early morning light. Another advantage of visiting Bayon between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. is that most bus groups have already departed the site. The Bayon is busiest between 9:00 and 10:30 a.m. and between 3:00 and 4:30 p.m.